Hello and welcome back to Conquest Creations. Last night, Games Workshop dropped some incredibly unexpected news, or at least I wasn't expecting it. They released two huge articles on Warhammer community, and this is the most news we've gotten for the Middle Earth strategy battle game in, I would say, 6 years since the last edition launched. This is some really exciting times. Let's have a look at what they put on Warhammer community and talk about what we think is coming for the game. Firstly, we've been getting a lot of new teasers for Middle Earth. Well, it's not a lot. It's been one a month, which is great. I think that's like plenty. I don't think we want the game to move too quickly. And currently, Articon, the world's biggest tournament, is happening. And now that I think about it, in retrospect, it is super clear that at Articon they were planning on doing a massive reveal. But this still took me completely by surprise. I woke up here, saw all these articles, and am very excited to get into them. So we're going to start with the first article that they put out, and that is titled New Edition of Middle Earth Strategy Battle Game Coming Soon. Wow, that is massive news. I was not expecting this at all, and it's... Yeah, so, okay. I'm excited. I wasn't expecting it at all. Pretty much, obviously, everyone who watches this channel knows all the time that Games Workshop doesn't release a heap of stuff for Middle Earth Strategy Battle Game. And I kind of thought that the edition that we were on was going to just be the game indefinitely. And I was actually a huge fan of that because I think that the current edition is really, really good. If I was put in charge of making a new edition, my changes to the game would be very, very minimal. There's definitely a couple things, like the hot topic that always comes out is the fight value could be spread out a bit better. I'd probably clarify some of the things around the order of declaring heroics as well. But overall, if I was in charge of making the new edition, it would be 99% the same, I'd say. But let's have a look at what they've said. So, they talk about, we've seen a host of new reveals for Middle Earth Strategy Battle Game over the past few months. Yep, absolutely. But if you thought that was the biggest news of the year, you ain't seen nothing yet. Okay. So they are revealing something special just around the corner. Yep. 6 years since the Battle of Pelennor Fields. A whole new edition of the game is galloping towards us. Keyword galloping, because that's going to relate to this little War of the Rohirrim down below here. But they say it's a very exciting time for fans of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit who can look forward to a refreshed and updated rules for the game and their armies. There'll be a shiny new rules manual to go with the new edition, as well as new supplements for the armies of Lord of the Rings and armies of The Hobbit, each of which will contain rules for the miniatures from the respective movie trilogies. Okay, well, that makes sense. Every profile has been reworked so that units and characters' actions and on-screen presence are even better represented on the tabletop, and your adventures in Middle-earth feel exactly as they should. That is huge. To say that every profile has been reworked is a pretty mind-blowing statement. Now, 6 years ago when they changed from the old edition to the new edition, they definitely could have said that statement as well. Every hero has been reworked. I think every profile, definitely not every profile changed, but a vast majority of them did. And I think every profile probably doesn't mean 100% of them, probably just means a lot of them. And between the last edition and, well, the last edition and the current edition, those changes were just overwhelmingly positive. A great example is some of the minor orc captains like Gorbag, who we see in the Tower of Cirith Ungol. In the previous edition, he was just an orc captain with 3 might. And then in this new edition, he got a special rule that completely sets him apart from an orc captain. And I would say it made him feel exactly how he did on screen. So I think they're just going to be pushing that further. I think my guess with that statement is that a lot of these characters who, there's the default generic captain, and then there's the character. They have generally one special rule. I'm guessing they're going to go further and go with more special rules or more stat changes just to create more variety within those characters. I think there's a lot of characters as well that I'm expecting this to be sort of just like a widespread balance patch. Not that I really think the game needs that at all. But in their FAQs, they're really, really resistant to making big changes because it kind of invalidates all books, and FAQs and constantly changing rules and stuff is never a good thing for any game. So I think that there's probably quite a lot of profile changes, profile balances that they've just accumulated over the past 6 years that doesn't really work as an FAQ or an errata that they're going to be implementing in here. Are there any of these that I can really think of off the top of my head? No, not really. But I'm sure there's a lot going on behind the scenes. We've got a lot of data from a heap of games. There's a super active community over in Nottingham, England. Anyway, where it's made, where Games Workshop's from. So I'm sure they've got a ton of data. It'll be really interesting to see, how this impacts the balance of the game. I think one of the reasons I love this game so much is because it's so balanced. And I know that Jay Clare's a super experienced player. I know that this is going to be really important to him as well. He is the main rules writer. So I'm really interested to see what changes he's going to make. Now, with this as well, there's a lot of profiles that since the very, very start of the game haven't really changed. I think a great example is a lot of the members in the Fellowship, Ring Wraiths, like Warriors of High Elf Warriors, maybe? I don't know. There's a lot. Sorry, I can't think of them all off the top of my head. Mori Goblins, and I'm expecting all of that to still be true. I think that, all these profiles that have been around for ages, I think will stay, really similar to how they are in respect for what the game was and what it's turned into. One of the best things about Middle Earth is that the game today basically just, it feels like an updated version of the first edition, and I'm expecting that to continue. I'm not expecting this to be like a, Warhammer Fantasy to Age of Sigmar hard reboot where they just completely change the core mechanics, because you may as well just make a different game at that stage. So I'm expecting that they will be really true to the game that's come before, and I'm expecting this edition to be pretty similar to what we're currently playing, with a few hopefully really positive tweaks. So it's not the news I was expecting. I'm optimistic. I always will be, but it obviously is a point to be a little bit hesitant. With any change, there's a chance that the changes could be negative, and I love the game how it is. So that definitely does make me a little bit nervous about, what if the changes are bad. But instead of being stressed about the changes being bad, I'm really interested to see what they do. And, when they come out, I'll make up my mind. I think that, I've got a lot of confidence in the rules writing team and that this is really exciting. The big thing is that, they've announced, Warner Bros., whoever makes Lord of the Rings, Warner Bros., has announced that they're going to be doing like a Hunt for Gollum movie. Obviously, the War of the Rohirrim movie, we haven't even talked about that yet. So I think that this is Games Workshop saying, yep, we are on board with that. We're going to be making content for all those new movies, which I think is really, really great. I think that more content for the game is generally going to be really good. And if you don't like new content, that's totally fine. Just don't play with it. Like, the existence of new stuff doesn't change old stuff if you don't want to play with it. Obviously, in like tournaments and in a community sense, it will. But that's okay. Like, if I've seen, some people having a whinge and being negative, and I do think that's just a natural thing of people on social media, which obviously isn't ideal, but the fact that there's new stuff coming doesn't ruin old stuff at all. So anyone who's concerned, I would totally recommend just see what happens. I'm really optimistic to see what they do. Now, at the bottom, wow, there's another big thing here. It says The Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim. So they are collaborating with that. I've heard other people saying that there's going to be a new starter set that has Rohan and Dunland. I think that kind of makes sense. Where The Hobbit came out, we got Escape from Goblin Town, which with each of the Lord of the Rings movies, there was a new starter kit. So, yeah, they're making a new Lord of the Rings movie. They're going to do a new starter kit. I think that makes sense. It'll be obviously Rohan and Dunland. Because Isengard doesn't exist yet. Yeah, 100% Rohan and Dunland with like Helm Hammerhand and Dunland and Chieftains. I'm presuming it's all going to be plastic kits. And if they're doing plastic kits for the new stuff, I'm expecting that means that more plastic kits could be on the way. And to me, this is like the green flag from Games Workshop of, yep, we're getting around this game. We're supporting it. We're going to make it bigger than ever, which is awesome. When Hunt for Gollum comes out, I'm expecting there'll be content around that, and whatever other movies they decide to make, I'm expecting more content around that as well. So that's going to be really interesting. It completely messes up my plans here in the studio. For those of you who don't know, basically I'm being kicked out of the studio because of the landlord's not renewing my lease because he's going to renovate the whole building. But my goal was to film all of Conquest Champions Season 4 and then basically release it over several coming months. Maybe I could get it done before the new edition, but it's 11 games. I was planning on releasing them fortnightly. That's 22 weeks. It's August. If I start now, it's probably still overlapping with that. I need to figure out what I'm going to do. If you have thoughts, let me know in the comments. This definitely messes up my plans now that I think about it. Okay, that was only the first article. I've been talking a lot here. I'm very excited about this. But let's have a look at the second article that they released. This came out 2 hours after this first one about the new edition, so I presume they're all hanging out at Articon releasing this stuff. Oh, I'm down at the bottom. You guys have probably already read these, but that's okay. Next article, Middle Earth Strategy Battle Game, The Rise of Angmar. They gave us this teaser, and then they have Ruda Warriors. Nope, Warriors of Condor. Warriors of Condor, that's right. Okay, and these are just like tribes, dudes hanging out, ready for a fight, go and destroy Arnor. They're kind of similar to the Warhammer Fantasy Barbarians. Well, that's kind of just because they're barbarians, which makes sense. These guys are super cool. I think they're great models. In the War in the North video game, which came out ages ago, they had basically these exact guys. I think their shield design is really interesting. Haven't seen something like that before. Obviously, their helmets are the big feature. They have cool antlers. Looks like this is going to come as a 6-pack. I'm expecting in Forge World Resin, but in that 6-pack, it gives you the option to build a captain and a bannerman, which is really, really great. Makes it easy for them to be used. In terms of rules for these guys, I'm not too sure. I think that they're going to have a relatively generic stat line. I'm going to guess they don't really have armor, but they do have shields. So probably D4 with a shield. Maybe D5 because they're jacked, but I'm going to say D4 with the shield. Like D3 base, and then the shield gives them D4. They can have spears, strength 3, fight 3, courage 3, and I'm expecting the interest in them is going to be in their special rules. So they're getting buffed by characters around them or something along those lines. Next up, we get to see the cover of the book, Rise of Angmar, which is a ring wraith. Cool. That's what the cover of the book looks like. Okay. Next, we have Aldrak, Warlord of Condor, and this is basically just a version of the Warriors, but absolutely juiced. He's got a mace, painted with some cool tattoo. Looks like a cool profile. He gets to call a free heroic combat so long as he killed something in the previous turn. I think that's a really cool, fluffy rule. Seems like very balanced. It means you're incentivized to kill stuff. I think he's going to be really fun to play with. He's a pretty cool model, so I'm a fan of that. I can imagine some really nice paint jobs on him. In kind of a weird pose, but that's cool. It's a dynamic pose. He's got his tactical rock. Huge fan of a tactical rock, so yeah, big ups to him for that. Next we have Fraked, Vassal of the Witch King. We'll say it's Fraked, but I'm sure there is different ways to pronounce that. I don't know what this little symbol thing is on top of the A. So I'm going to say Fraked, Vassal of the Witch King, a man of Condom with a fanatical devotion to the Witch King. Yep. Says he doesn't possess any magical powers of his own, but the men of Condom believe that he's blessed by the Witch King, and that incantations of power chants are able to conjure strength, swiftness, durability within those who follow him. So I'm guessing it obviously says he doesn't have any magical powers, so he can't cast any spells, but he has different special rules. I'm going to guess that's kind of similar to a Sentinel, how you just do it when you move, and it does stuff. I like the option that it seems like each time he moves, he's going to give you 3 choices. So you can either give strength, a movement bonus, or a defense bonus, which means you've got decision making every turn, which I really, really like. Obviously, we don't know anything until we see the rest of his rules, but again, this is a super cool model. Doesn't look super Lord of the Ringsy to me. He looks a bit more like, D&D Druid, but that's okay. It's cool. He's got the feathers, got the bones. Yeah, I'm into it. I like his hood. He looks like a bit of an edgelord. Next, this is not one I was expecting. Aranath. First chieftain of the Dunedain. the first son of Arvedui. He doesn't become a king. He goes and lives in the woods, and then eventually has enough babies that Aragorn comes out eventually. So he's got expert shot, so he can shoot twice, and Chieftain of the Dunedain special rule, spurring them onwards as they fight the corruption of Angmar. So I'm guessing he's a buff character for the Dunedain. The Dunedain are a faction that I think are sorely lacking in terms of power, so maybe in the new edition, that's one that I can see getting a little bit reimagined and a bit of a buff. Next up, we have Shadow of Ruda. This is a pretty cool model. It looks like kind of an updated Barrow White type sculpt. It says, a twisted and malign spirit bound to the surface of the Witch King. Quite where the Shadow of Ruda came from is a mystery long since lost. It says that the Shadow of Ruda can manifest its own magics, appearing as a herald of doom for its enemies. Those confronted by this spectral being will see their resolve ebb away, and the winds of fate seemingly abandon them. Okay. First thing, spectral being will see their resolve ebb away. I'm guessing that's some courage debuff for the enemy. And the winds of fate abandoning them means I think he's going to be a fate debuff, which is really cool. So I'm expecting heroes will, they'll have a more difficult time passing fate if they're around this guy. Sorry, this is off topic. Back to the first thing. I think that fate is a widely underused stat. It's only used for saving wounds. There's a very few other mechanics with it. So in the new edition, I'd love to see fate expanded upon, more different things you can do with it, different functionalities, just so it's a little bit more interesting than just saving wounds. Kind of like, might points. If might points were just for boosting dice rolls, that's cool, but the exciting thing about might is heroic. So at the moment, fate is just for saving wounds. I want to see what else it can be. Okay, next up we have Berta, Hill Troll Chieftain, and oh my god, this guy's had a glow up. Let me find the old Berta to show him off. I have this old Berta model, and ooh, Berta. Ooh, is that how you spell it? Yep, there it is. Cool. Old Berta model's a good model. I think it's fantastic. But this new one is 100 times cooler. Importantly, this old one is on a 40mm base. This new one, that looks like either Berta has shrunk down and he's still on a 40. I think that this is a 50 or a 60mm base, probably a 50mm base. But Berta looks absolutely awesome. His eyes are super far apart, which I love because he's like a troll. I love seeing his 3-fingered hand spread out. Usually you just see them like holding onto things, but actually seeing it is really kind of unnerving. Fantastic model. It says, a glorious new model befitting his status as Hill Troll Chieftain. Alongside new miniatures, Berta has a new legendary legion that focuses around him. Cool. And his unrelenting horde, utilizing his impressive cunning to gain an advantage over his foes. So it's saying that he's actually kind of smart, and he's a super cool model. I think that this guy's going to be really popular, especially if that legendary legion makes an all troll list pretty viable and competitive. I'm expecting it to be super popular, especially with how awesome of a model he is. He's got this humongous sword. I can definitely imagine myself picking him up. Next up, we have Hill Trolls. These are also just phenomenal models. They're so nice. They are Tolkien. They are, detailed. They've got everything that I'm interested in. They have personality. And it says, the hills of Angmar, Ruda, and other lands under the command of the Witch King are filled with more than just orcs and evil men. Hill trolls can also be found roaming there. Unlike cave trolls or mortal trolls, these creatures possess a keener mind and their hill troll intelligence. Something also shared by Berta allows them to combat their enemies more effectively. I'm really interested in seeing what that means. It's been a big discussion around here in the studio of the mortal trolls kind of lacking, and we want to see it be stronger. And what are different ways that we could do that. And I think that this is kind of going to be their template for monsters moving forward, which is another thing I think could use a massive rebalance. Generally, well, not all monsters, but just like trolls in general. So really interested to see where these guys go. It's, as I said, fantastic models. So I think they're going to be a ton of fun, and having like a pure troll army, I think is going to be viable with Berta leading these guys. They're super cohesive. So very interesting. Now, we're up to the last one here. We have werewolves. It says werewolves, they've been around for a while, but they've lost their ability to turn back into humans, so they're just ferals. They have feral charge, which I assume is going to be kind of between a cavalry charge and a monstrous charge. And straight off, the very first thing I notice is this looks exactly like Gothmog's Warg. Let me pull up Gothmog here. Here's Gothmog's Warg. Yep, he's got like this big mohawk on his Warg. And then have a look at these things. Are you guys seeing that those look so wildly similar? Like, obviously, Gothmog's one doesn't just have hands, so maybe it's like, I don't know, the love child between a Warg and one of these guys, or one of these guys that's further devolved into just being a wolf. But that is absolutely no coincidence that these are so similar, surely. And I love Gothmog's Warg. I love Gothmog in general, beside the point. But I can't be the only one seeing that. That's the very first thing I saw when I looked at this. I was like, oh, they made Gothmog's Warg its own unit. Sweet. So, very exciting. Now, I'm presuming that this supplement will come out with the new edition, or if it comes out before, that means that all the supplements are going to carry forwards into the new edition, so you don't need to get new books for them. If you do have to get new books for them, I think that would be a little bit unfortunate, but, you know, that's how it is. It's progress. So, yeah, very excited, but I do hope that all of the supplements, War in Gondor, War in Rohan, Quest of the Ringbearer, are all still completely relevant going into that new edition. And I kind of think they will be. If I had to bet, I would say yes, that they will be. Especially because there's a lot of more content coming in the Lord of the Rings pipeline that they don't need to redo War in Gondor when they have the Hunt for Gollum coming out. So, yeah, I've seen people online being like, oh, they're going to release this and then it's instantly going to be invalid. And, like, come on, that's obviously not going to happen. Like, if they're going to release this and a new edition, like, within the same month, it's going to be valid. So, I wouldn't be stressed about that at all. But, yeah, super excited for what's coming. It's really exciting to see the game getting this big renewal of interest from Games Workshop because that's going to bring more players into our community. So I think we're going to have some pretty big tournaments coming up. I think that a lot of people are going to be getting into the game with this new stuff. I do really hope that War in the Rohirrim is a good movie, because if it's not, I think that will not result in very much popularity. But, you know, I'm always going to be optimistic. I absolutely love this game. I love how it is currently, and hopefully I love how it's going to be in the future. I think the rules writer's done a lot of really good stuff. So, yeah, let's see what happens. Obviously, stay positive about the hobby. And this has been Conquest Creations. Thank you for watching.